What do you do when the life you've built crumbles in an instant and the person you loved becomes someone unrecognizable? Stay tuned to discover how Rowan faces the unraveling of her world, how she gathers the pieces of herself, and how she begins a journey toward freedom, no longer running from the past, but ready to confront whatever lies ahead. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience, growth, and finding the courage to move forward. The soft hum of jazz filled the air, the flickering candlelight casting a warm glow over the pristine white tablecloth. Our 10th anniversary dinner was meant to be a celebration, a milestone in the life Blaine and I had carefully built together. I wore the red silk dress he always said was his favorite, the one that mirrored the rich color of the wine he adored pouring into my glass. "This vintage is worth savoring," he'd always say, and I trusted him, believing in the romanticism of it all. But that night, something felt amiss. The restaurant was magnificent, marble floors, chandeliers twinkling like stars in the night. Yet Blaine seemed distant, his gaze wandering around the room instead of resting on me. I tried to push away the growing discomfort, convincing myself that he was simply exhausted. His job as a corporate lawyer was demanding, and lately he'd been under a great deal of pressure. "You look stunning," he finally said, his eyes meeting mine for just a moment, but the smile never reached them. "Thank you," I replied, my voice softer than I meant. I longed to feel the warmth in his words, but the weight in my chest refused to lift. The waiter arrived with our appetizers, and as we clinked glasses, I tried to ignore the unease creeping in. "To us," I said, hoping to rekindle some spark. "To us," he echoed, his voice flat. The rest of the meal passed in an uneasy silence. Blaine had been unusually quiet, absent-mindedly pushing his food around his plate rather than eating it. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked, unable to bear the tension anymore. He looked up, as if startled by my question, as if he'd forgotten I was even there. "What? Yeah, fine. Everything's fine," he muttered. But I could feel the lie hanging in the air. But it wasn't fine. I could sense it in the stillness between us, a space too wide to ignore. "Blaine, talk to me." "If something's wrong, we can talk about it." "You always do this," he snapped, his voice sharp enough to slice through the ambient music. I froze, the words hanging between us like a heavy weight. "Do what?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Ruin the moment," he said, leaning back in his chair, crossing his arms as if to shield himself from me. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I'm not trying to ruin anything. I just want to understand what's going on." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "Of course you do. You always need to understand, to control everything." Before I could respond, the waiter arrived with our entrees, his cheerful "Bon appétit" slicing through the tension like a knife. I managed a forced smile, muttering a quick thanks, praying he didn't notice the strain in my voice. As soon as the waiter left, Blaine reached for his glass of wine. He took a long sip, setting the glass down with a deliberate clink. "You know what your problem is, Rowan?" he said, his voice low but laced with venom. My heart pounded in my chest. "What are you talking about?" "You think you're better than everyone else. Always the perfect wife, the perfect hostess, the perfect everything." His words hit me like a slap. "That's not true," I said, my voice trembling. "Isn't it?" he said, leaning forward now, his eyes boring into mine. "Maybe if you spent less time trying to be perfect and more time being real, we wouldn't be sitting here pretending everything's fine when it's not." Before I could respond, he picked up his glass of wine and in one swift motion, tipped it forward, letting the dark red liquid cascade over me. Gasps echoed from nearby tables as the wine soaked into my dress, staining the vibrant silk a deep, angry crimson. I sat there stunned, the world around me a blur. Blaine leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smirk on his face. "Happy anniversary," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I couldn't move. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, waiting for my reaction. My cheeks burned, not from the wine, but from the humiliation. I looked down at the ruined dress I had chosen so carefully for this night. Blaine didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, cool as ice, as though this was just another day for him. My throat tightened, my pulse roaring in my ears. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand an explanation, but all I managed was a shaky breath. As I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the marble floor. "I'm leaving," I whispered, my voice barely audible but firm enough to signal that I wouldn't stay and let him break me. "Of course you are," he muttered, taking another sip of his wine. I turned and walked away, my steps shaky but determined. I didn't stop to look back. I couldn't bear to see the judgment or pity in the eyes of the other diners. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap, but it didn't wash away the shame. I hailed a cab, my hands trembling as I gave the driver my address. When I got home, I peeled off the ruined dress and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, disheveled and vulnerable. The woman I saw wasn't the Rowan I thought I was. "How did it get to this?" I whispered, sinking to the floor. Memories of better days with Blaine flashed through my mind, walking hand in hand through Paris. Him surprising me with breakfast in bed, telling me I was the love of his life. When did that man, the one I cherished, turn into a stranger? My phone buzzed, yanking me back to reality. It was a text from Blaine. "You always make things worse than they are. Maybe next time don't provoke me." Provoke him? The audacity of his words hit me like a slap. I felt my anger flare up again. I threw the phone onto the bed and buried my face in my hands, trying to quiet the storm brewing inside me. The next morning, I woke up to the sharp sunlight cutting through the curtains, my body aching from a restless night. The phone buzzed again this time, a call. Blaine appeared on the screen. My thumb hovered over the decline button. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity mixed with a surge of anger made me press answer. "What do you want, Blaine?" I asked, my voice tight, almost mechanical. There was a long pause on the other end, then a heavy sigh. "Rowan, we need to talk. It's important." I couldn't stand his games anymore. "Talk about what? How you humiliated me in front of an entire restaurant? Or how you've turned into someone I don't even recognize?" He was quiet for a beat, then replied with a tone I couldn't quite place, serious and almost desperate. "I'm serious. This isn't about last night. It's about something else. Something you need to know." A shiver ran down my spine. Blaine was a master manipulator, but his tone was different this time, almost vulnerable. "What is it?" I asked, the anger now replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. Another long pause, heavier this time, before he spoke. "It's about the money, Rowan, and the people I owe it to." My heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" "I've been keeping secrets," he confessed, his voice barely audible. "And last night was my way of trying to push you away because if you stay, you're in danger." The words hung in the air like a weight, suffocating me. "Danger?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "What kind of danger, Blaine? What have you done?" His silence filled the space between us, deafening. It felt like he was weighing how much to reveal. "Rowan, it's complicated," he finally said, his voice flat. "No," I snapped, the fury returning. "It's not complicated. You humiliated me last night and now you're telling me I'm in danger without explaining anything? You don't get to drop a bombshell like that and then stay vague. Talk!" I could hear him exhale sharply, almost a hiss of frustration. "I borrowed money, okay? A lot of it from people you don't want to know. They're not the kind of people you can just pay back and walk away from." My stomach twisted. "What does this have to do with me?" "I used the house as collateral," he confessed, his voice trembling. "And now they're coming for it, and maybe for more." The room spun, my mind struggling to process what he just said. "The house?" I whispered, my voice hollow. "You used our home, my home, for your debts? It wasn't supposed to go this far," he said quickly, desperation creeping into his tone. "I thought I could pay it back. I thought I'd fix it before you ever found out." "But you didn't, did you?" I shot back, my anger burning hotter now. "Instead, you've dragged me into your mess. Do you even realize what you've done?" "I do," he said, almost pleading. "And that's why I tried to push you away. I wanted you to leave me, Rowan. I wanted you to be safe." I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and foreign. "Safe? Do you think pouring wine on me in public and treating me like garbage would make me safe? You're unbelievable, Blaine." He didn't respond, and the silence on the line felt like a void threatening to swallow me whole. I ended the call and stared at the phone in my hand, my mind racing. This wasn't just about humiliation anymore. It wasn't just about a marriage falling apart. This was about survival. I thought about calling someone, maybe my best friend Rin, but how could I even begin to explain this? Instead, I did what I always did when life threw me a curveball. I started digging. I opened my laptop and began searching for anything that could help me understand what Blaine had gotten us into. Bank statements, emails, anything. It didn't take long to find the trail. Large, suspicious withdrawals, payments to accounts with cryptic name, and then, buried in his emails, I found the first real clue. A message from someone named Cyrus Kane. Subject, final notice. "Blaine, your time is up. Pay what you owe or we'll take what you promised. And don't think we won't come for more if it's not enough." A chill ran down my spine. The message was dated a week ago. Who was Cyrus Kane, and what did he mean by more? I didn't have time to wonder. A loud knock on the front door jolted me out of my thoughts. My heart leaped into my throat. It was barely 9:00 a.m. Who could it be? I crept to the window and peeked through the curtains. 2 men in dark suits stood on the porch, their faces impassive but menacing. They knocked again, harder this time. "Mrs. Parker," one of them called out, his voice sharp and commanding. "We know you're in there. We just want to talk." Talk? Every instinct in my body screamed, "Don't open the door!" I grabbed my phone and backed away, my mind racing. Who were these men, and how far was Blaine's debt going to reach into my life? As I stood there, trembling and uncertain, my phone buzzed with another call. Blaine again. I didn't answer. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. My legs moved before my mind could catch up. I grabbed my purse and threw on a coat, not even bothering to change out of the sweatpants I'd slept in. I needed to get out of the house, away from those men, away from Blaine's chaos. I slipped through the kitchen and out into the backyard, the frosty morning air stinging my cheeks. I crouched low and crept along the side of the house, avoiding the windows. My heart pounded with every step, each knock on the front door echoing like a drumbeat in my head. "Mrs. Parker, we won't ask again!" one of the men bellowed. I didn't stick around to hear what would happen if I didn't answer. I made it to the alley behind our house and flagged down a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I hesitated. Where could I go? The home was no longer safe, and I couldn't risk involving anyone I cared about. "Just drive," I said, my voice trembling. The cab pulled away, and I sank into the seat, my mind racing. I needed a plan, a way to get ahead of this. I ended up at a small coffee shop on the edge of town, where no one would think to look for me. I sat in the corner with a cup of tea I didn't touch, scrolling through Blaine's emails again. The name, Cyrus Kane, was like a dark cloud looming over every message. Payment deadlines, threats, warnings. Who was this man, and why did he feel entitled to our house? My house. My phone buzzed on the table, and I almost jumped out of my seat. It was a text from Rin. "Hey, everything okay? I just saw 2 guys outside your house, looked serious. Call me." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should I tell her? Could I risk dragging her into this? Before I could decide, another text came through. This one was from an unknown number. "Running won't help you, Mrs. Parker. We always find what's ours. M." My blood turned to ice. How did they get my number? How did they know I'd left? I deleted the message, my hands shaking. If they thought they could intimidate me, they were wrong. I knew I couldn't keep running. If Blaine had brought this chaos into my life, then he owed me answers. I called him and he picked up on the first ring. "Rowan," he said, relief flooding his voice. "Thank God. Where are you?" "Not important," I said curtly. "I need you to tell me everything, Blaine. No more half-truths, no more games. Who is Cyrus Kane?" He hesitated. "He's not someone you want to cross. He's a loan shark, Rowan, one of the most dangerous in the city. I borrowed money from him to cover some investments." "What kind of investments?" I demanded. The risky ones, he admitted. I thought they'd pay off big. I was trying to secure our future, Rowan. I wanted to give us everything we ever dreamed of. Well, congratulations, I snapped. You've given us a nightmare instead. Listen, he said, his voice desperate. I can fix this. I just need more time. Time for what? I shot back. To drag me further into your mess? To let these men ruin what's left of my life? Rowan, please, he pleaded. I know I screwed up, but you have to trust me. I'll fix this. I laughed bitterly. Trust you? After everything you've done? He didn't respond, and the silence told me everything I needed to know. I'm done, Blaine, I said firmly. I'm done cleaning up your messes and pretending everything's fine. You're on your own. Rowan, wait! I ended the call and immediately turned off my phone, feeling a strange sense of clarity flood over me for the first time in years. Blaine had put me in this position, but I refused to let him drag me down with him any longer. I didn't know exactly what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to be a victim. I would fight back, and if Cyrus Kane thought he could take everything from me, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The next few hours were a blur, my mind spinning as I tried to think of every possible scenario. I needed to make a plan, something concrete. I couldn't sit idly by, waiting to be hunted down by strangers who could tear my life apart without a second thought. But there was one thing I knew for sure. Blaine wasn't coming to save me. I took a deep breath and forced myself to focus. The first thing I needed to do was gather information. I had to find out everything about Cyrus Kane, the man who had been pulling the strings in Blaine's life. I went to a public library, hoping to get some quiet while I dove into the criminal underworld. I used every resource I could find, old news articles, online forums, anything that could give me a glimpse into Kane's world. It didn't take long before I found the first mention of him. Cyrus Kane wasn't just a loan shark. He was a kingpin, the head of an underground empire dealing in weapons, drugs, and illicit business. He was the kind of man you didn't say no to, the kind who made sure people paid, one way or another. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I read more. Blaine had gotten himself tangled up in something far bigger than I had ever imagined. The loan he had taken out was just the surface. Kane was notorious for collecting debts in violent and destructive ways, and now I was involved, whether I liked it or not. I slammed my laptop shut, startling a couple of people nearby. I had my next move. I didn't have time to waste. I needed to confront Cyrus Kane myself. I drove across town to a rundown building, a place that reeked of desperation. It was the kind of place no one entered unless they had no choice. A place where secrets were made and lives were ruined. I parked a block away, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I knew I couldn't back down now. The moment I stepped into the building, the smell of stale alcohol and cigarettes hit me. The air was thick with tension. Men in dark suits lounged around, their eyes flicking over me as I walked past them. I kept my head high, ignoring their stares, and made my way down a narrow hallway. At the end of it stood a solid door. I knocked 3 times, each rap echoing through the silence. A voice called out from inside, "Come in!" I pushed open the door and stepped into the dimly lit room. Behind a desk sat Cyrus Kane. He was tall, his dark eyes calculating and sharp. As soon as I entered, his gaze locked onto me, like he was sizing me up. "You must be Rowan Parker," he said, his voice smooth but cold, sending a chill down my spine. I didn't flinch. "I'm here to talk about Blaine," I said, walking forward. "And about the debt you've been collecting." Cyrus raised an eyebrow. "You're a brave woman," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Most would have run by now, but I can respect someone who faces their problems head on." "I'm not here for your respect," I snapped. "I'm here because I want answers. I want you to tell me exactly what's going on. What kind of deal did Blaine make with you, and why do I have to pay for it?" Cyrus leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "Blaine Parker is a fool," he said calmly. "He thought he could play in the big leagues, take out loans and make investments without understanding the consequences. I gave him what he wanted, but now he isn't paying the price, and you, Mrs. Parker, are caught in the middle." My heart pounded, but I held my ground. "What do you want from me?" He smiled, a cold, cruel grin that sent a chill down my spine. "What I want is for you to understand something very important. Blaine has nothing left but you. You still have something worth taking." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "You're not just his wife," Cyrus said, standing up and walking around the desk. "You're his last asset, the house, the car, the savings. You see, when someone doesn't pay their debts, I take what's theirs, and now I'm looking at you, Rowan. You're the key to fixing all of this." A sudden wave of panic crashed over me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't show him fear, not now. "You think I'll just hand everything over to you?" I asked, my voice low but steady. "You think I'm going to let you destroy my life like you did Blaine's?" Cyrus's smile widened, his eyes darkening with amusement. "Oh, I'm not asking you to hand anything over, but you have a choice. Help me, and I'll let you walk away with your life. Refuse, and, well, things won't end so nicely for you." The threat hung in the air like poison, but I wasn't backing down. "I'm not your pawn, Cyrus," I said, each word sharp. "You won't break me, and you won't take anything from me. I'll fight you every step of the way." For the first time, Cyrus's expression faltered just for a moment, but I saw it. He wasn't used to people standing up to him, and something about that realization gave me strength. I walked out of that building with a fire burning inside me. The weight of what I had just done, the confrontation, the threats, was almost unbearable, but I wasn't going to let Cyrus Kane or anyone control my life. When I returned home, I knew Blaine would be waiting for me, but things had changed. I wasn't the same woman who had fled in terror a few days ago. The fear that had once controlled me was gone. I wasn't afraid anymore. The house was empty when I stepped inside. The silence weighed heavily on me, like the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the next part of this twisted story to unfold. Alone with my thoughts, I looked around, but I knew I wouldn't be alone for long. I glanced at my phone, no new messages from Blaine, no calls from Cyrus. It was as if they were both waiting for me to make the first move. But I was done waiting. I had spent too many days letting their threats hang over me, letting their drama dictate my life. Not anymore. I was in control now, and if I was going down, it wasn't going to be because I let someone else pull the strings. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. Cyrus Kane was dangerous, but he wasn't invincible. People like him had weaknesses, and I was going to find them. I spent hours digging into his past. The deeper I went, the clearer it became. Cyrus wasn't as untouchable as he thought. His empire had cracks, loose ends that someone like me could exploit. I found an address, a secondary location tied to Kane's operations, a place he used to store assets and run more of his shady deals. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I knew one thing for sure. This was my chance. I grabbed my coat, leaving the house without a second thought. If Cyrus thought I was just going to roll over and hand everything over, he had another thing coming. The building was a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place you'd drive by without giving it a second glance. But I had studied the blueprints. I knew exactly where I was going. I parked a few blocks away and made my way through the shadows. The entrance was locked, but that wasn't going to stop me. After all these years with Blaine, I had learned my way around security measures. It didn't take long before I was inside. The warehouse was dark, cold, and smelled faintly of metal and dust. My heart pounded in my chest and my adrenaline surged, pushing me forward. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew something was hidden here, something I could use. As I ventured deeper into the maze of crates and storage units, I found it, a small office tucked away in the back, hidden behind a stack of old boxes. It looked temporary, perhaps a meeting room, a place for keeping sensitive things locked away. I didn't hesitate. I pushed open the door. Inside, the room was neat, almost too neat. My eyes immediately fell to the desk, where a stack of files, discarded papers, and right in the center, a locked briefcase sat. I smiled to myself. I didn't know what was inside, but I knew it was important. I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I picked the lock with ease, my hands steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in my head. When the case finally opened, I felt a rush of triumph, but then a cold wave of dread washed over me. Inside were documents, contracts, financial statements, and a few photographs. But it was the last item that made my blood run cold. A ledger, a list of names. My name was scrawled there, neat and precise, in handwriting that belonged to someone too comfortable in this world. And next to it, a number. My stomach twisted. This was it. This was the leverage Kane had on me. The thing he was holding over me and over Blaine. I had no choice but to take it all. I grabbed the ledger and stuffed it into my bag. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I went to a payphone, dialing a number I hadn't called in years. Rin's voice came through immediately. "Rowan?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Where have you been? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, my voice tight. "I need your help. I need you to meet me." "Anything. Where?" I gave her the address. When she arrived, her eyes widened in surprise as she took in the warehouse. She was worried, but she trusted me. "What are we doing here?" "I'm going to take down Cyrus Kane," I said, my voice steady. "But I need you to do something for me. I need you to help me get the evidence into the right hands." Rin didn't ask questions. She just nodded. She knew how far I'd come to get here. We walked out of the warehouse together, the first glimmers of dawn creeping over the horizon. I still had one final move to make, one last step to free myself from Blaine's mess, from Cyrus's grip, but I wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. With Rin by my side, I felt a sense of strength I hadn't known I'd lost. We made our way to the small, inconspicuous office of a reporter who had earned a reputation for exposing criminal operations. This was my last play. Take the evidence and make sure Cyrus and Blaine couldn't hide behind their lies anymore. As we walked into the office, the walls were lined with old newspaper clippings, all detailing the downfall of powerful people who thought they were untouchable. The man behind the desk, Grady Harrow, looked up when we entered. He was scruffy, with sharp eyes that took in every detail. "You must be Rowan," he said, his voice low and cautious. "What's this about?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I placed the bag containing the ledger, the contracts, and the photographs on the desk between us. "This is my life," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I want Cyrus Kane and Blaine Parker exposed. I want them held accountable for everything they've done. I can't do it alone, but I know you can help." Grady studied me for a moment, his eyes flicking to Rin, then back to me. He didn't speak for a long time, just leaned back in his chair, arms folded. Finally, he spoke. "You're sure about this? Exposing Kane is like throwing yourself into the lion's den. Once this goes public, there's no going back." I didn't flinch. "I'm not going back. I've been living in fear for too long. It ends now." His gaze softened, and he nodded. "All right. I'll make sure this gets to the right people." As we left the office, the weight of everything I had just done began to settle on me. I had just handed over everything I had worked for and fought for, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had taken control. We got in the car and headed back to my house, but my mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. Cyrus and Blaine weren't going to just let this go. The storm was coming, and I had no idea how violent it would be, but I couldn't wait any longer. The call came the next day. I was in my kitchen, sipping coffee, trying to calm my nerves when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I didn't hesitate. I answered it. "Rowan?" The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was Blaine. "Where are you?" he demanded, his voice tight with anger. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm not going to keep hiding, Blaine. I'm done with you. I'm done with the lies, the secrets. You and Cyrus can't control me anymore." "I never meant for this to happen," he pleaded, his voice breaking. "No, you don't get to play the victim now," I snapped. "You put me in this position. You made choices that destroyed everything, and now you want me to clean up your mess? I'm not your damn savior, Blaine. I'm done." There was silence on the other end. I could hear his breathing, heavy and uneven. "Rowan, please, you don't know what you're up against. Kane, he'll hurt you." "I've already been hurt," I replied coldly, "but I'm not afraid of him anymore." "You don't know what he's capable of, what he can do." "I don't care," I said firmly. "You made your choice when you got involved with him. Now I'm making mine." I ended the call. It didn't take long for Cyrus to make his move. 2 days later, I received an unmarked envelope at my doorstep. Inside was a single piece of paper. It was a picture of me standing outside Grady's office, and below it, in bold letters, "This is your last warning. You can't win this war." I was numb, but there was no time for fear. The pieces had already fallen into place. Cyrus had made his threats, and now he was showing his hand. I grabbed the documents from Grady, the photographs, and the ledger, and drove straight to the police station. It was time to end this once and for all. I walked up to the front desk, my heart pounding in my chest. The officer behind the desk looked up at me, surprised to see a woman so determined. "I need to speak to someone in serious crimes," I said. "I've got evidence. I'm ready to bring down Cyrus Kane and Blaine Parker." The officer blinked, then nodded. "Follow me." The next few hours felt like an eternity. The police took the evidence, examined it carefully, and confirmed the severity of the situation. They told me they would handle it from here, that they had enough to launch a full investigation into both Cyrus Kane and Blaine Parker. I walked out of the station with a sense of closure settling over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The storm wasn't over, but I knew it was coming to an end. A week later, Cyrus Kane was arrested. The charges were a litany of things I had never dreamed I would be part of: racketeering, money laundering, illegal arms deals. The police had enough to bring him down for good, and Blaine, his involvement was discovered, but he was too far gone. His empire crumbled under the weight of his own choices. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why Blaine made the decisions he did, or why I let him drag me into his mess for so long, but one thing was clear. I wasn't the woman I was before all of this. I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor, and this time I would be the one to rebuild. As the days passed, I watched from the sidelines as Cyrus's empire collapsed. The police raided his properties, confiscated his assets, and dismantled the vast network that had enslaved so many lives. The news was everywhere, scandals broadcasted across all channels, and I realized just how deep his corruption had run, how many had been affected by his greed and manipulation. I still remember the day Blaine was arrested. It was hard to watch him, handcuffed, being led away with a hollow expression, his face pale and broken. He didn't look at me. I wasn't sure how to feel, whether I should be relieved or heartbroken. I had loved him for years, loved the man I thought he could be, not the one he had turned into. When the news broke, the public was shocked, but I wasn't. I had known Blaine, seen the way he deceived himself, and his ties to Kane weren't just mistakes. They were choices. I couldn't keep pretending I could fix everything he'd broken anymore. The next few months passed in a quiet that was unsettling. It was the kind of silence that was peaceful yet ominous, like the calm before a storm. I took some time for myself, giving my mind space to breathe, to process. I hadn't truly been alone for so long, without the noise of manipulation, the weight of secrets. Alone with my thoughts and feelings, I found myself questioning, what was I supposed to do now? Who was I after everything had fallen apart? The life I had known was gone, but I was still standing, still breathing. And in that, I found a strange sense of victory. Months later, I stood outside a small cafe I'd passed by countless times but never dared to enter. Today, something felt different. I took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and the scent of coffee and fresh pastries enveloped me. The soft murmur of conversations and clinking cups filled the air. Life continued on around me, but in a way, I felt like I was part of it now, not left behind. I found a seat by the window, settled in, and pulled out a notebook. It had been so long since I'd written, but today it felt right. I wasn't worried about the future. I wasn't consumed with thoughts of revenge or trying to fix the past. I was simply living, creating. For the first time in so long, I wasn't afraid of what was to come. The past, with all its pain and betrayal, would never fully leave me. It was a tangled mess I couldn't erase, but it had taught me lessons I couldn't ignore. Lessons about strength, resilience, and knowing who I was, even when everything seemed to fall apart. I had been broken, but I had gathered the pieces, and now I knew no one else could save me. Only I could save myself. As I looked out at the sunset from the cafe window, A small but genuine smile spread across my face. I wasn't the woman I used to be, and that was okay. The journey had been long, the fights hard, but now I was free. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to see what came next. Days passed, and life began to find a new rhythm. But then, one evening as I was walking home from the cafe, I received a text. The number was unknown. The message was simple. "You're not done yet, Rowan. This isn't over." My heart skipped a beat, the familiar weight of dread settling in. Was it Cyrus? Had someone else connected to his network managed to survive? I stood frozen for a moment, staring at the message, the words sinking in. Then, to my surprise, I smiled. I had learned something in the last few months. I wasn't afraid anymore. The past had shown me that I always had a choice. I could let this message control me, or I could move on, turn the page. I tucked my phone away and walked into the night, my footsteps echoing through the quiet streets. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I would face it head on. I had come this far, and I wasn't going to stop now. What would you do when you've finally had enough and the life you've built begins to crumble beneath you? Rowan had spent years in a marriage she thought was built on trust and love, but after a humiliating night, marked by her husband's violent outburst and a shocking revelation about his debts, Rowan finds herself at a crossroads. Her life, already shaken by the betrayal of the man she loved, is now being threatened by dangerous people. After a confrontation with Blaine and his confession about his illegal dealings, Rowan is forced to take matters into her own hands. She confronts the loan shark behind Blaine's debts, Cyrus Kane, and starts gathering evidence to expose him. But Rowan isn't just running from danger, she's running towards a new life. She doesn't have all the answers, and she's not sure what the future holds, but she knows one thing. She's no longer going to be controlled. She takes action, refuses to be a victim, and ultimately begins the process of freeing herself from the mess Blaine has created. In this situation, Rowan's courage is the key to her survival. She took the risk of walking into a dangerous world, standing up for herself and demanding answers, refusing to let fear control her anymore. This moment of clarity changes everything for her, but could it truly be over? The message she receives at the end suggests the battle isn't finished yet. Will Rowan continue to fight, or is this just the beginning of a new chapter? What would you do if you were in Rowan's shoes? Would you confront the danger head-on or try to escape? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories.
The email from my brother sat unopened in my inbox for 3 days, its subject line screaming in all caps, "Urgent, need your help." I knew exactly what it would say, and that's precisely why I couldn't bring myself to read it. Funny how success makes you suddenly visible to those who once refused to see you. I'm Nicole, and 10 years ago, my family told me I was throwing my life away by moving to London to pursue my MBA. "The family business needs you here," my father had said, his disappointment evident in every syllable. My mother's words were even sharper. "Always living in a fantasy world, aren't you, Nicole?" My phone buzzed. Sophia's name flashed across the screen. "Have you read it yet?" she asked without preamble. "Hello to you too," I said, spinning in my office chair to face the London skyline. "And no, I haven't." "Girl, you're the CEO of a tech consulting firm. You can't avoid emails forever." I sighed, clicking open the dreaded message. Austin's desperate words spilled across my screen. Financial trouble, impending bankruptcy, need for immediate investment, family legacy at stake. "He needs £2 million, I told Sophia. "Says the business will go under without it." "The same business they wouldn't let you modernize?" Sophia's laugh was bitter. "The one your brother took over because daughters don't understand tradition?" The memory stung. I remembered that family dinner clearly. Austin in his new suit, Dad beaming with pride, Mom fussing over him, while I sat there with my acceptance letter to London Business School, unmentioned and unnoticed. They don't know, do they? Sophia asked. About your success? No, I replied, walking to the window. They stopped following my life when I stopped following their plans. My assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Wilcox, your 2 p.m. is here. Thanks, Sarah. I'll be right there. I turned back to my phone. Sophia, I have to go. Wait, what are you going to do about Austin? I glanced at the framed document on my wall, my first major acquisition. Something they'll never expect. That evening, I sat in my penthouse apartment, scrolling through old family photos on my laptop. There was one from my graduation, me, alone, because they were all at Austin's business launch that day. Another from Christmas 5 years ago, the last time I visited home. Mom had asked if I was still playing at being a businesswoman in London. My phone pinged with another email from Austin. Nick, please respond. We're desperate here. I opened my safe and pulled out the document I'd been holding on to for 6 months. The deed to our family home, which I'd bought through a holding company when the bank threatened foreclosure. They didn't even know it was me who now owned the roof over their heads. My hands shook as I dialed Sophia's number. I'm booking a flight home, I said when she answered. You're going to help them? I'm going to make them see me. I pulled up my airline app. Really see me for the first time. Nicole? Sophia's voice softened. Just don't lose yourself in trying to prove something. I'm not proving anything, I said, but we both knew that wasn't entirely true. I'm just finally taking my seat at the table. I booked the flight for next week, first class. As I packed my laptop away, a notification popped up. My company's stock had risen another 3% today. The irony wasn't lost on me. The daughter they said would amount to nothing now had the power to save or sink their entire world. My phone buzzed again, Mom this time. Austin says he's contacted you. Your father and I think you should help your brother. It's what family does. I thought about all the times I needed family, all the dreams they dismissed, all the support they withheld. Now they needed me, and I held all the cards. I texted back a single line, I'll be home next week. Then I opened my safe again, tucked the house deed into my briefcase, and smiled. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it just needs to be patient. Sophia texted, You okay? I am, I replied, and for the first time in years, I truly was. They wanted me to come home and help with the family business. Well, I'm finally ready to do exactly that. I closed my laptop and walked to my bedroom window, looking out at the London lights. In 7 days, I would walk into my childhood home, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the woman who owned it. The thought made me smile. Let them underestimate me one last time. You're taking the house deed with you? Sophia watched me pack from my bed, her expression concerned. That's like bringing a nuclear weapon to a knife fight. I folded another blazer into my suitcase. It's insurance. Against what? Against them dismissing me again. I held up 2 pairs of heels. The black or the red? The red. Nothing says I own you quite like Louboutins. Sophia sat up straighter. Have you told Yael you're going? I paused. Yael, my brother's business partner, had reached out to me privately last month with concerns about Austin's management. No, but I'm meeting her for coffee when I get there. My phone rang. Mom again. I let it go to voicemail. Third call today, Sophia noted. They must be really desperate. The voicemail notification pinged. I put it on speaker. Nicole, dear, just checking your flight details. We've prepared your old room. Austin's wife made your favorite cookies. Her voice trailed off awkwardly. Well, what used to be your favorite anyway? It's been so long, hasn't it? Sophia rolled her eyes. Funny how they remember you have a favorite cookie when they need 2 million pounds. 1.5 million, I corrected, zipping my suitcase. The pound-dollar exchange rate works in their favor. You're not seriously considering giving them the money? I sat beside her on the bed. I'm considering showing them exactly who I've become. Whether that includes saving the business, I shrugged. That depends on them. My assistant Sarah knocked and entered with a folder. Your itinerary, Ms. Wilcox, and the latest reports on your brother's company. How bad is it? Sophia asked after Sarah left. I flipped through the pages. Worse than they're telling me. They're not just failing. They're in free fall. Austin's taken out 3 high-interest loans in the past year. Jesus. Yeah. I closed the folder. And that's not even counting the mortgage they almost defaulted on. Sophia grabbed my hand. Promise me something? What? Promise you won't let them guilt you into fixing everything. You're not responsible for their mistakes. My phone buzzed with a text from Austin. Dad's asking when exactly you're arriving. Says he wants to pick you up. The same dad who didn't pick me up when I landed for Christmas 5 years ago? I texted back. I've arranged my own transportation, thanks. Sophia read the exchange over my shoulder. Good girl. I learned from the best. I smiled at her. Remember when you found me crying in the bathroom during orientation? Because your mom told you you'd fail within a month? Yeah, I remember. She squeezed my hand. Look at you now. The intercom buzzed. My car to Heathrow had arrived. Sophia helped me with my luggage. At the door, she hugged me tight. Remember who you are now. Don't let them make you feel small again. In the elevator, I checked my email one last time. A message from Yael caught my eye. Heard you're coming home. We need to talk. Austin doesn't know I'm contacting you. The car ride to Heathrow was quiet. I watched London slip away, the city that had given me everything my family said I couldn't have. At security, I pulled out the house deed one last time, checking it was real. The paper felt heavy with possibility, or perhaps threat. My name, clear as day, hidden behind a corporate veil they hadn't bothered to investigate. Business or pleasure? The flight attendant asked as I settled into first class. I thought about the deed in my bag, about Austin's desperate emails, about Mom's forced cheerfulness, and Dad's sudden desire to pick me up. Neither, I replied. Family? She nodded sympathetically and offered me champagne. I accepted, raising the glass in a silent toast to the view outside my window. Somewhere over the Atlantic, my old life was waiting. But this time, I wasn't arriving as the daughter they could ignore. My phone buzzed one final time before airplane mode. A family photo from Mom, taken at the last Christmas I attended. Everyone smiling, me slightly apart, already planning my escape. Coming home is always special, she'd written. I typed back, yes it is. Then added silently to myself, especially when you own it. The plane took off, carrying me toward a confrontation 10 years in the making. In my bag, the deed waited like a loaded gun. In my head, Sophia's words echoed, remember who you are now. I closed my eyes, feeling the altitude change. Time to show them exactly who I'd become. The Uber pulled up to my childhood home, and I had to smile at the irony. They still didn't know I owned the pristine colonial, with its perfectly manicured lawn and fresh paint job, all maintained by the property management company I'd hired. Mom burst out the front door before I could even grab my luggage. Nicole! Oh, sweetheart! She rushed forward, arms open, wearing the pearl necklace she always saved for special occasions. Hi, Mom. I accepted her hug, stiff and formal. You look so different. She stepped back, taking in my tailored suit and designer handbag. London's been good to you? Very. I wheeled my suitcase toward the house. Where's everyone else? Inside, Austin's been pacing all morning. Dad stood in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. There's my girl, he said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The living room felt smaller than in my memories. Austin sat on the edge of the couch, fingers drumming against his knee. He jumped up when he saw me. "Nick, thank God you're here." He moved to hug me, but I stepped aside, setting my bag down. "Let's skip the pretense," I said. "You need money." Mom's breath caught. "Nicole, he's your brother." "Yes, and he only remembers that when he needs something." I turned to Austin. "How bad is it really?" He loosened his tie. "It's complicated. Try me. I do handle multi-million-dollar accounts for a living." Dad's eyebrows shot up. "You do what now?" "Oh, didn't Austin tell you? When he asked for help, he must have mentioned researching my company." Silence fell. Austin's face reddened. "You didn't research me at all, did you?" I laughed. "You just assumed I'd have enough savings from some middle management job to help out." "Now wait a minute," Dad started, but I held up my hand. "I'm meeting Yael for coffee in an hour. Maybe she can fill in the blanks you're leaving out." Austin's face went from red to white. "You're meeting Yael? Why?" "Because, unlike some people, she did her homework." I checked my watch. "Mom, is my old room ready? I'd like to freshen up." Mom nodded mutely, still processing. I grabbed my bag and headed upstairs, their whispered conversation following me. "Did you know she was successful?" "Why didn't you tell us, Austin?" "I didn't. I assumed." My old room was exactly as I'd left it, down to the college pennants I'd pinned up before leaving, dreams they'd dismissed as unrealistic. Now they hung like badges of defiance. My phone buzzed. A text from Yael. "Coffee shop on 5th? There's a lot you need to know." I texted back confirmation just as a soft knock came at my door. Mom entered, carrying fresh towels, her hands trembling slightly. "Nicole, She set the towels down. "We didn't know about your success." "You never asked." "I know." She sat on my bed, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the comforter. "When you left, it was easier to imagine you struggling. It made us feel better about—" She trailed off. "About pushing me away?" "About being wrong." Her voice cracked. "The business is failing, Nicole. Has been for years. Austin tried to modernize, but he didn't know how." I finished for her, because the person who could have helped was told she didn't understand tradition. Mom's eyes welled up. "Your father was wrong. I was wrong." "Yes, you were." I checked my phone again. "I need to get ready for my meeting." She stood, wiping her eyes. Will you help? Can you?" I thought about the deed in my briefcase, about the years of dismissal and doubt, about Austin's desperate emails and Dad's sudden interest in picking me up from the airport. "I haven't decided yet." I moved toward the bathroom. "But Mom?" She turned back. "Yes?" "Those pearls you're wearing? I have a pair just like them. Bought them myself. Funny how things work out, isn't it?" She touched her necklace, nodded once, and left. I heard her footsteps pause outside my door, then continue down the hall. In the bathroom, I reapplied my lipstick and straightened my jacket. Somewhere below, Austin was probably still trying to explain to Dad how he'd missed his sister becoming more successful than him. My phone buzzed again. "Sophia." "How's it going?" "Just getting started," I replied. "Meeting Yael next. Time to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes." I took one last look in the mirror, adjusted my Cartier watch, the first expensive thing I'd bought myself, and smiled. The real show was about to begin. Yael was already waiting when I arrived at the coffee shop, her laptop open and a stack of papers beside her. She stood to greet me, her handshake firm and professional. "You look nothing like your LinkedIn photo," she said, sitting back down. "That's from 5 years ago. A lot's changed." I ordered an espresso. "So, tell me what my brother won't." Yael pushed a spreadsheet across the table. "We're not just in trouble, Nicole. We're 3 weeks from complete collapse." I scanned the numbers, my stomach tightening. These vendor payments are overdue. That's not even the worst part. She pulled up more documents. Austin's been moving money between accounts to hide the losses from your parents. He even took out a second mortgage on the house. I smiled despite myself. Did he now? The bank was about to foreclose 6 months ago, but some investment firm bought the debt. She shrugged. Bought us some time at least. Interesting. I sipped my espresso. And the business loans? Due next month, all of them. Yael ran a hand through her hair. I've tried to stop him, tried to implement changes, but he won't listen. Says the traditional way is the only way. Sounds familiar. I knew you'd understand. That's why I reached out. She leaned forward. Nicole, I've seen your company's work. The innovations you've implemented. We need that here. You mean you need my money? No, she shook her head. We need you, your expertise, your leadership. She paused. Though the money wouldn't hurt. My phone buzzed. A text from Austin. Where are you? We need to discuss the investment. Speaking of my brother, I showed Yael the message. He's panicking, she said. The staff hasn't been paid in 2 weeks. I gathered the documents, taking photos with my phone. Thank you for this. It's illuminating. What are you going to do? Have dinner with my family. I stood, straightening my jacket. Would you like to join us? Her eyes widened. Are you sure that's wise? Absolutely not. I smiled. That's what makes it perfect. 2 hours later, we sat around the dining room table, the tension thick enough to cut. Mom had outdone herself with dinner, clearly trying to recreate the family meals of the past. So, Yael, Dad said, cutting his steak, nice of you to join us. Nicole invited me. She glanced at Austin, who hadn't touched his food. I thought it would be good to discuss things, openly. There's nothing to discuss, Austin snapped. This is a family matter. Is it? I set down my fork. Because from what I've seen today, this is a business matter, a very serious one. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. What do you mean? Should I tell them, Austin? Or would you prefer to explain the second mortgage, the unpaid vendors, the staff waiting for their paychecks? Dad's face reddened. What is she talking about, son? It's not. I was handling it, Austin stammered. If Nicole would just help with the investment. Investment? I laughed. You mean bailout. Now see here, Dad started, but I cut him off. No, you see here. I pulled out my phone, pulling up my company's website. See that number? That's my company's annual revenue. And that one? That's our market valuation. Mom gasped. Yael smiled into her wine glass. But that's... Dad squinted at the screen. More money than this family has ever seen? I finished for him. Yes, it is. Funny what can happen when you let your daughter pursue her dreams. Austin pushed back from the table. So, you're rich now. Congratulations. Are you going to help us or just rub our faces in it? I reached for my briefcase. Actually, I already have helped, though you didn't know it. I pulled out the deed. Remember that investment firm that bought your mortgage? The color drained from Austin's face as I slid the document across the table. That was you? Mom whispered. Surprise. I took a sip of wine. I own the house you're sitting in. Dad grabbed the deed, hands shaking as he read. How? When? 6 months ago. When Austin's secret second mortgage was about to default. I turned to my brother. You really should read the fine print on those documents you sign. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom started to cry quietly. Dad stared at the deed like it might bite him. Austin looked like he might be sick. Yael cleared her throat. Perhaps this is a good time to discuss restructuring options? I stood, smoothing my skirt. Yes, let's. But first, I think my family needs a moment to process the fact that the daughter they dismissed now holds their future in her hands. I walked to the window, looking out at the property that was now legally mine. Behind me, the weight of a decade of dismissal and doubt finally shifted, landing squarely on their shoulders. "You planned this?" Austin's voice broke the silence. "All of it. You let us struggle while you waited for the perfect moment to humiliate us." I turned from the window. "Humiliate you? No, Austin. You did that yourself when you gambled with this family's future." "That's enough!" Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "Both of you? Is it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Because I think we're just getting started." Yael cleared her throat. "The business numbers? The business numbers show incompetence," I cut in. "Or worse." Mom stood suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Nicole, please, come with me, now." She didn't wait for a response, just walked toward the kitchen. After a moment's hesitation, I followed. The kitchen still smelled like fresh bread. Mom's stress baking hadn't changed. She closed the door behind us and leaned against the counter. "There's something you don't know," she said quietly, "about why we pushed you away from the business." "Save the excuses. Your father was protecting you." Her voice cracked. "The business, it wasn't just failing now, it was failing then too." I froze. "What?" "We were in debt up to our ears. Your father," she wiped her eyes, "he knew you had potential, real potential, not like—" She stopped herself. "Not like Austin?" She nodded slowly. "When you got that scholarship to London, your father forged documents to reject other business loan offers. He knew if you saw the real numbers, you'd stay. Try to fix things. So you pushed me away instead?" My voice rose. "Made me feel worthless? We made you angry enough to leave." She pulled something from a drawer, an old envelope. "This came for you, the day after you left. Your father never sent it." Inside was a job offer from a prestigious consulting firm in New York. Starting salary that would have seemed enormous to my younger self. He said if you saw this, you might choose something safe instead of following your dreams. Mom's hands trembled. "We were wrong about so many things, Nicole, but not about your potential." The kitchen door opened. Dad stood there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Is this true?" I held up the letter. He nodded slowly. "The only good decision I ever made as a father was making you hate us enough to leave." "Dad, no, let me finish." He stepped into the kitchen. "I watched you fight for every dream we dismissed, watched you prove us wrong from afar, and now," he gestured vaguely toward the dining room, "now you're everything we knew you could be." "Everything, Austin?" "Everything I'm not," Austin said from the doorway. His eyes were red. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? The golden child who actually turned to gold." Yael appeared behind him. "The staff numbers are in. We need an answer tonight." I looked at my family, Mom's tears, Dad's resignation, Austin's anger, then at the job offer that could have changed everything, but instead changed nothing. "You know what's funny?" I said, placing the letter on the counter. "I spent 10 years thinking you didn't believe in me. Turns out you believed in me so much you were willing to let me hate you." "Nicole," Austin started, but I held up my hand. "The business is salvageable, barely, but things need to change." I turned to Yael. "Show them the restructuring plan." She pulled out her tablet, pulling up spreadsheets. "We'll need to modernize completely. New systems, new approaches, new leadership," I added. Austin's head snapped up. "You're taking over?" "No." I smiled slightly. "Yael is." "What?" everyone said in unison. "She's been trying to save this company for years. She knows the business, she knows what needs to change, and most importantly," I looked at my brother, "she knows how to admit when she needs help." Dad stepped forward. "And the house?" stays in my name. Insurance against old habits dying hard. I turned to Austin. You can keep living here, but one wrong move. He nodded slowly, understanding the threat. Well, Mom said, wiping her eyes, I suppose we should go back to dinner. It's getting cold. Actually, I picked up my phone. I ordered pizza, the expensive kind, from that place downtown you always said was overpriced. Dad laughed, a real laugh, the first I'd heard in years. Of course you did. As we waited for the pizza, I texted Sophia. Remember when you said bringing the deed was like bringing a nuclear weapon to a knife fight? She replied instantly, Did you drop the bomb? I looked at my family, awkwardly gathering around the kitchen island, decades of secrets finally exposed. I did, I typed back. But maybe, just maybe, something better might grow from the ashes. The doorbell rang. Pizza arriving at the house I owned, for the family I was starting to understand, in a way I never expected. The next morning, I walked into the family business for the first time in a decade. The receptionist did a double take at my visitor badge. Clearly, she'd heard about last night's revelations. Yael met me in the conference room, spreading documents across the table. Ready to see exactly what you're saving? Show me everything. 3 hours later, my head was spinning. The business wasn't just outdated, it was practically archaeological. Paper ledgers, manual inventory, systems from the early 2000s. How did they survive this long? I muttered, flipping through employee records. Your father's reputation, Yael said. Old clients stayed loyal, but their children? She shrugged. They want modern solutions. The door opened. Austin stood there, looking like he hadn't slept. Can we talk? He asked. Alone? Yael gathered her papers. I'll go check on the implementation team. Once she left, Austin sat heavily across from me. I found Dad crying in his study this morning. Austin? No, let me finish. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo. Remember this? It was us as kids, maybe 12 and 15, working on the store's window display for Christmas. Both smiling, both proud. What happened to us? He asked quietly. Life happened. Dreams happened. Or, in my case, dreams got crushed. I never wanted this, you know. He gestured around the office. The business, the responsibility, that was Dad's dream. Could have fooled me. Because I played my part perfectly? He laughed bitterly. While you fought and left, I stayed and pretended. Guess which one of us made the right choice? A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom entered, carrying a familiar-looking box. Found this in the attic, she said, placing it on the table. Inside were my old business proposals from college, modernization plans, digital transformation strategies, everything I'd tried to show them years ago. You kept these? I picked up a faded spreadsheet. I read them, Mom said softly. After you left, they were brilliant. She touched my hand. You were brilliant. Austin opened one of the folders. This could have saved us years ago. It still can, Yael said from the doorway. Most of these ideas just need updating. I looked at my old work, then at my family. Why are you showing me this now? Because, Mom took a deep breath, we want you to understand that our biggest regret isn't losing the business, it's losing you. My phone buzzed, Sophia checking in. I ignored it. The thing is, Austin added, we don't deserve your help. But the employees who've stuck with us through everything? They do. I stood walking to the window overlooking the factory floor. Workers moved below, their jobs hanging by a thread they didn't even know about. Yael, I called out, what's the severance package situation? Non-existent, she replied. Austin used that fund for the last loan payment. Mom gasped. Austin looked at the floor. Right. I turned back to them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not just going to save this business, I'm going to drag it into the present. But there are conditions. Anything, Austin said quickly. First, Yael becomes CEO. She's earned it. I held up my hand as Austin started to protest. You'll be head of client relations. That's what you're actually good at. And me? Mom asked. You'll run the charitable foundation we're going to establish. Help the community that supported this business for generations. What about the house? Austin's voice was quiet. It stays in my name, but I softened slightly. As long as you stick to the plan, nothing changes. You can live there as long as you want. And Dad? Chairman Emeritus, advisory role only. I picked up one of my old proposals. He can watch his children build something together instead of tearing each other apart. Mom wiped her eyes. When do we start? We already have. I nodded to Yael, who opened her laptop. The modernization team arrives tomorrow. New systems by the end of the month. Full digital transformation within 6 months. That fast? Austin looked worried. That's business in the real world, brother. I smiled slightly. Try to keep up. My phone buzzed again. Sophia had sent a series of questioning emojis. Go ahead, Mom said. Tell her you're fixing another mess. No, I replied, typing quickly. I'm telling her I'm finally building something with my family instead of in spite of them. Austin stood, straightening his tie. I should go talk to Dad. We all should, I said, as a family. As we left the conference room, I glanced back at the box of old proposals. A decade ago, they'd represented everything I couldn't make my family understand. Now, they were a blueprint for saving not just the business, but maybe our family too. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's about building something better from the ruins. 3 weeks into the transformation, I stood in front of the assembled staff, their anxious faces reflecting the fluorescent lights of the conference room. Change is coming, I announced, but your jobs are secure. In fact, we're investing in you first. Yael stepped forward with a stack of envelopes. These contain your back pay, plus a bonus for your loyalty. The relief in the room was palpable. A few people started crying. There's more, I continued. Starting next week, we're implementing training programs. Everyone gets a chance to grow with the company. Dad sat in the back, watching silently. He'd barely spoken since the night of the revelation, but his eyes followed everything I did. After the meeting, an elderly employee approached me. I worked with your grandfather, she said, her voice shaking. He'd be proud of what you're doing. Before I could respond, Austin burst into the room. We have a problem. The Martinez contract. They're pulling out. The Martinez account was our biggest client. Losing them would derail everything. Where are you going? Austin called as I strode past him. To fix it. Come on. We took my rental car, Austin directing me to the Martinez office building. They won't see you without an appointment, he warned. I smiled, pulling out my phone. Mr. Martinez's daughter Lisa is my company's client in London. Trust me, they'll see me. 20 minutes later, we sat in Roberto Martinez's office, his daughter on video conference. Lisa, I nodded to the screen. Thanks for arranging this. Nicole saved our European expansion last year, Dad, Lisa said. Hear her out. I opened my laptop, pulling up our new business plan. Mr. Martinez, I know why you're worried. Our company looks like it's stuck in the past. But look at this. For the next hour, I walked him through the transformation plan. Austin chimed in with client relationship details, showing a competence I hadn't expected. And who's guaranteeing all this? Martinez asked. I am. I pulled up my company's credentials. My firm will oversee the entire transformation. Your account will be our priority. Martinez leaned back. Lisa? Dad, Nicole doesn't fail. Ever. He nodded slowly. Okay, we'll stay. but I want weekly updates. In the car afterward, Austin was quiet. What? I asked. That was impressive. The way you handled him, the way you knew exactly what to say. It's what I do, Austin. It's what I've been doing for years while you all thought I was just playing at business. He flinched. I deserve that. Yes, you do. I turned into the company parking lot. But you were good in there too. You know these people, their history. We need that. We? Yes, we. Unless you're planning to screw this up? No. He straightened. No, I want to make this work. I want to make things right. Back at the office, we found Mom and Dad in the conference room with Yael, going through old client files. Martinez is staying, I announced. Mom hugged me impulsively. How did you? She was brilliant, Austin interrupted. You should have seen her, Dad. This is what we've been missing all these years. Dad stood slowly. Nicole, could we talk? Privately? In his office, he didn't sit behind his desk. Instead, he went to the window. I've been watching you these past weeks, he said. The way you handle problems, the way you think ahead. You remind me of my father. Dad, let me finish. He turned to face me. He built this company from nothing. I thought I was protecting his legacy by keeping things the same. Instead, I almost destroyed it. He pulled out an old photo, him as a young man with his father. I was wrong about everything, except one thing. What's that? You. When I pushed you away, it was because I saw how brilliant you were. I thought I was setting you free. His voice cracked. I didn't realize I was just being a coward. A coward? I was afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of admitting the world had moved past me. Afraid of seeing my daughter succeed where I had failed. I thought of the house deed in my briefcase, of the power I held over them all. The house, he said, reading my mind. Keep it. We deserve that sword over our heads until we prove ourselves worthy of your trust again. My phone buzzed. Yael had sent the first week's progress report, ahead of schedule on every metric. Dad, I said softly, want to see how we're saving your father's legacy? He nodded, tears in his eyes. As we walked back to the conference room, where Mom, Austin, and Yael were waiting, I realized something. The revenge I'd planned had transformed into something else entirely. It had become redemption. Sign here, I said, sliding the document across my father's desk. And here. Dad's hand trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. Are you sure about this? Just sign it. The scratch of pen on paper seemed impossibly loud in the quiet office. Outside, the factory hummed with new energy, modern machines, efficient processes, engaged workers. There, he said, pushing the papers back. It's done. I checked the signatures, then pressed the intercom. You can come in now. Mom, Austin, and Yael entered, followed by Sophia, who'd flown in specially for this moment. The tension in the room was electric. So? Austin asked. Did he sign? I nodded, holding up the papers. As of now, the house deed is in all our names. Joint ownership. Mom gasped. Sophia grinned. Austin just stared. But why? He asked. You had all the power. Because power isn't the point anymore. I turned to Dad. The company's quarterly results? He smiled. A real proud smile. Show them, Yael. Yael pulled up the projections on the wall screen. Green arrows pointed upward across every metric. We're not just stable, she announced. We're growing. The modernization plan worked better than anyone expected. Which is why, I added, I'm making one more change. I pulled out another document. This one was harder to place on the desk. What's this? Dad picked it up, reading. His eyes widened. Nicole, no. Yes. I stood firm. I'm stepping back. The company doesn't need my oversight anymore. But, Austin started. But nothing. Yael's proven herself as CEO. You've grown into your role in client relations. Mom's charitable foundation is changing lives. And Dad, I smiled at him, you've learned to embrace change instead of fear it. What about you? Mom asked softly. I have my own company to run, but I'll always be on the board, always be family. I gestured to the house deed. That paper proves it. Sophia stepped forward. Tell them the other news. All eyes turned to me. I'm opening our new European headquarters here, I said. In this city, I'll be splitting my time between London and home. Home, Dad repeated, testing the word. Yes, home. I walked to the window, looking out at the factory floor. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because somewhere between plotting revenge and finding redemption, I remembered what that word meant. Austin joined me at the window. Remember when we used to play hide and seek down there? Behind the old inventory shelves, I nodded. Now it's all automated storage. Better, he said. Different, but better. Like us? He bumped my shoulder gently. Like us. Mom wiped her eyes, trying to hide it. Dad pretended not to notice, just like he pretended not to be emotional himself. Well, Yael said briskly, we should celebrate. Dinner? Actually, Sophia interjected, I had something delivered to the break room. We found the staff gathered around a massive cake, decorated with both companies' logos intertwined. Speech, someone called out. Dad looked at me expectantly. I shook my head and gestured for him to take the floor. He cleared his throat. 10 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let fear of change drive away the person who could see our future most clearly. He looked at me, but sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our greatest blessings. Today, we're not just celebrating success, we're celebrating family, the one we were born with, the one we chose, and the one we built together. The room erupted in applause. As people gathered around the cake, Sophia pulled me aside. Still glad you didn't burn it all down? I watched my family, Dad showing Yael old photos on his phone, Mom hugging staff members she now knew by name, Austin explaining our new systems to veteran employees. You know what's better than revenge? I asked. What's that? Being right, being successful, and then being generous enough to share it with the people who doubted you. Sophia hugged me. That's not the angry girl I met in London. No, I agreed. She got everything she wanted, and then she realized she wanted something more. The house deed sat in my bag, now bearing all our names. The power to destroy had become the power to rebuild, and somehow that felt like the biggest victory of all. Time to cut the cake, Mom called. I joined my family, standing between the past we'd overcome and the future we'd build together. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even finished. But it was ours, and that was enough.
I stood in the corner of the banquet hall, watching my father's retirement party unfold like a carefully orchestrated performance, where I was the only one who hadn't received the script. The champagne in my glass had gone flat an hour ago, much like my enthusiasm for this entire evening. My name is Soleil, and I've spent 28 years trying to live up to impossible expectations. Tonight was supposed to be different. I'd even worn the pearl earrings my father had given me for my 16th birthday, hoping they might serve as some kind of peace offering. There you are! Paige's voice cut through the ambient chatter, sharp as a knife. My stepmother glided toward me in her designer dress, perfect makeup, and that practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes. Darling, you really should mingle. Standing alone in corners isn't exactly helping your image. I was just taking a break, I said, forcing a smile. It's been a long evening. It's barely 9, sweetie. She adjusted my collar without asking, her red nails grazing my neck. Your father's colleagues keep asking about you. The least you could do is make an appearance. Before I could respond, my half-brother Alex appeared beside us. Mom, Dad's looking for you. Something about a speech? Paige's eyes lit up. Oh, of course. Fletcher always needs my help with these things. She hurried away, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume. Alex squeezed my shoulder. You okay? I'm fine, I lied, just wondering how much longer I need to stay to maintain the facade of the perfect family. Soleil. He started, but was interrupted by the clinking of glass. My father stood at the center of the room, arm around Paige, looking every bit the successful businessman about to embark on his well-earned retirement. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, he began, his voice carrying across the room. 40 years at Phillips & Associates, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my beautiful wife, Paige. I took another sip of flat champagne, trying to ignore the familiar ache in my chest. No mention of Mom, of course. No mention of how she'd raised me alone for years while he built his empire. As the crowd dispersed after the speech, I made my way to the restroom, needing a moment alone. But as I approached, I heard voices around the corner. Just like her mother, Paige was saying to someone. Fletcher tried his best, but you can't fix what's fundamentally broken. The girl's been nothing but a disappointment since day one. I froze, my hand gripping the wall for support. That seems harsh, another voice responded. I recognized it as my Aunt Carol's. Soleil seems to be doing well for herself. Please, Paige scoffed. She's 28, single, and still trying to make it as a writer. If it weren't for Fletcher's monthly checks, she'd be living in a cardboard box. My face burned. Those monthly checks were my inheritance from my grandmother, which my father managed. Something Paige knew very well. I just wish Fletcher could see that all his efforts to help her were wasted, Paige continued. Some people just aren't worth the investment. I backed away, bumping into a waiter who nearly dropped his tray of drinks. Mumbling an apology, I rushed toward the exit but crashed straight into my father. Leaving already? He frowned, straightening his tie. The party's barely started. I'm not feeling well, I managed to say. You never are when it comes to family obligations, he sighed. Your mother was the same way, always running when things got uncomfortable. The comparison to my mother, intended as an insult, felt like a lifeline in that moment. Maybe she had the right idea, I said, meeting his eyes. His expression hardened. Don't start, Soleil. Not tonight. When then, Dad? When is it okay to talk about Mom? When is it okay to be anything other than grateful for your generosity and Paige's guidance? You're making a scene, he warned, glancing around. No, I'm making an exit. I pulled the pearl earrings off and pressed them into his hand. Congratulations on your retirement. I'm sure Paige will help you enjoy every minute of it. As I walked away, I heard Paige's voice behind me. Fletcher, darling, is everything okay? I didn't stay to hear his response. Instead, I pushed through the heavy doors into the cool night air, my hands shaking as I dug for my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I'd been avoiding for years. Mom? My voice cracked as she answered. I think it's time we talked. 2 days after the retirement party disaster, I sat across from my mother at a quiet cafe, studying the face I hadn't seen in person for 15 years. Melina looked different from my memories. Her dark hair now streaked with silver, laugh lines around her eyes deeper, but her smile was exactly as I remembered. I can't believe you're actually here, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. I've driven past your apartment so many times, wanting to knock. Why didn't you? The question came out sharper than I intended. Because I promised your father I wouldn't interfere. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. But I think it's time you knew the truth. What's that? Letters, dozens of them. I wrote to you every week for the first year after I left. She pushed the envelope across the table. Letters that were supposedly delivered but never answered. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were letters, their pages yellowed with age, each one dated and addressed to me at my father's house. I don't understand, I said. I never received these. I know that now. Melina's voice hardened. Paige made sure of it. What do you mean? Last year, I ran into Maria. You remember her? She was our housekeeper before Paige fired her. Melina leaned forward. She told me something interesting. She used to see Paige collecting mail before anyone else got to it. Specifically, she remembered seeing her throw away letters with my handwriting. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. That's why you stopped trying to contact me? No, sweetheart. I never stopped. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Here's your graduation announcement. Your first published article. That writing award you won last year. I followed everything you've done. How? Your cousin Natalia. She's kept me updated, sent me pictures. She paused. I know I should have tried harder to reach you directly, but Paige had convinced your father that I was unstable, that contact with me would be harmful to you. Dad believed her? I whispered, though I already knew the answer. Of course he had. He'd believed everything Paige ever said about me, about Mom, about anyone who threatened her perfect family narrative. Paige is very good at what she does, Melina said carefully. She started planting seeds of doubt long before I left, suggesting I was depressed, unstable, potentially dangerous. When I finally confronted her about it, she gave me an ultimatum. What kind of ultimatum? Leave voluntarily, or she'd make sure I lost custody completely. She had evidence, fabricated of course, of my unstable behavior, witnesses willing to testify. Your father's money behind her. Melina's eyes filled with tears. I thought if I left quietly, I could fight it from outside, prove myself stable and responsible. I never imagined she'd manage to cut off all contact. My phone buzzed, a text from Alex. Where are you? Dad's freaking out about the earrings thing. I ignored it. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're ready to hear it, and because I have proof. She pulled out another envelope, this one containing what looked like legal documents. Your Uncle Sylvester, he's a lawyer now, he helped me gather evidence. Bank records showing payments to false witnesses. Emails between Paige and her friends coordinating their stories. Even a confession from one of them who felt guilty after all these years. I stared at the documents, my vision blurring. All this time, all these years of thinking you abandoned me. I know, baby, I'm so sorry. She reached across the table, taking my hand. I should have fought harder. No, I said, squeezing her hand. You did fight. Paige just made sure we never knew about it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Paige. Your father is very disappointed in your behavior. Call him immediately. A cold clarity settled over me. Mom, I need your help with something. Anything. These letters, the evidence, would you be willing to share them? All of it? She studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time everyone knew the truth about Paige. Not just what she did to you, but everything. The manipulation, the lies, all of it. I straightened in my chair. But I need to be smart about it. Strategic. You sound like your uncle, she smiled. He always says timing is everything in cases like this. Then let's talk to him. I stood up, gathering the letters and documents. I'm done letting Paige write our family's story. As we left the cafe, my phone buzzed one final time. A message from Natalia. Heard you finally met with Aunt Melina. Ready to raise some hell, cousin? For the first time in days, I smiled. Hell wasn't just about to be raised. It was about to be orchestrated. Uncle Sylvester's office smelled like leather and coffee, and the wall of law books behind his desk made the perfect backdrop for our impromptu war council. Natalia perched on the edge of his desk, while Mom and I sat in the visitors' chairs, spreading out our evidence. This is quite the collection, Sylvester said, adjusting his reading glasses. Bank statements, emails, witness statements. Paige wasn't as careful as she thought. People like her never are, Natalia chimed in. They get cocky. I picked up one of Mom's old letters, its paper thin with age. I want to confront Dad with this. Today. Whoa, slow down, Sylvester held up his hand. Timing is crucial here. Your father's been under Paige's influence for decades. If we don't handle this right, he'll dismiss everything as a fabrication. The door opened, and Alex stepped in, making everyone jump. Sorry I'm late, he said, closing the door behind him. Had to make sure Mom didn't follow me. Alex? I stood up. What are you doing here? Natalia called me. He shrugged. looking uncomfortable in his suit and tie. Said it was time to pick a side. Natalia grinned. Told you he wasn't as blind as he pretends to be. Alex walked over to the desk, picking up one of the documents. I've suspected something was off for years. The way Paige, always controlled the narrative. The way she'd intercept mail and screen calls. He looked at me. Remember when your college acceptance letters mysteriously got lost in the mail? That was her. Found them in her desk drawer while looking for stamps. He sat down heavily. I should have told you then, but she's your mother, I finished. I get it. She's also a manipulative liar who destroyed my sister's relationship with her mother, he said firmly. That matters more. Sylvester cleared his throat. Alex's involvement changes things. We now have an inside perspective that could be crucial. More than that, Alex added. I have access to her computer. She's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. Found some interesting emails between her and her friend Sandra about their story alignment regarding Melina's departure. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for her coffee. Sandra was one of the witnesses who claimed I was unstable. Got those emails right here. Alex pulled out a USB drive, along with some interesting financial records I found while helping Dad with tax preparation. Sylvester plugged in the drive, scanning the contents. This is excellent, but we still need to be strategic about the reveal. Dad's hosting a family dinner next weekend, Alex said. Celebrating his first week of retirement. Everyone will be there. Natalia's eyes lit up. Perfect timing. Public enough to prevent a cover-up, private enough to maintain dignity. I don't care about dignity, I snapped. I care about justice. Justice without strategy is just revenge, Sylvester said quietly, and revenge has a way of backfiring. My phone buzzed. Another message from Paige. Family dinner next Saturday. Wear something appropriate. We need to discuss your recent behavior. She's planning something too, I said, showing them the message. She won't let the retirement party incident go unanswered. Then we'll be ready, Mom said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it all day. All of us. I should head back. Alex stood up. Dad's expecting me for lunch. But first... He pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found what he wanted. Remember that antique box Paige keeps in her closet? The one no one's allowed to touch? We gathered around his phone. The photo showed a collection of letters, cards, and what looked like birthday checks, all addressed to me. There's more. He swiped to another photo. College fund statements. Looks like Grandma left you way more than what Dad's been giving you monthly. The room went silent. Even Natalia looked shocked. That's theft, Sylvester said finally. Clear and documented theft. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white. All these years of her calling me a financial burden. While she was literally stealing your inheritance, Natalia finished. That's going to play really well at dinner. Alex headed for the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. Sis? For what it's worth, I'm sorry it took me so long to step up. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. After he left, Sylvester began organizing the documents into folders. 1 week to prepare. We'll need every minute. What do we do first? I asked. First, he smiled grimly, we make copies. Lots of copies. Then we plan exactly how this story's going to unfold. I looked at the evidence spread across his desk. Years of lies and manipulation reduced to paper and pixels. Paige always said I was just like my mother. You are, Natalia grinned. You're both fighters, and this time you're fighting back together. The day before the family dinner, I met Dad for coffee at his request. He chose the same cafe where I'd reunited with Mom, though he didn't know that. He was already there when I arrived, looking oddly diminished without his usual business suit. You're late, he said, pushing a cappuccino toward me. Traffic. I sat down, noting the dark circles under his eyes. You wanted to talk? Paige is worried about you. He stirred his coffee unnecessarily. She says you've been avoiding her calls. I've been busy. Too busy to return any of my calls either? He leaned forward. What's going on with you lately, Soleil? First the scene at my retirement party, now this distance. Maybe I'm just tired of pretending, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Of acting like everything's fine when it's not. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Did you ever wonder why Mom really left? His face hardened. We're not discussing your mother. Why not? Because Paige said so? I pulled out one of Mom's old letters, not the original, but a copy. Did you know about these? He stared at the letter, recognition flickering across his face. Where did you get that? From Mom. There are dozens more. Letters she wrote to me that I never received. Want to guess why? Your mother abandoned us, he said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. She was unstable. According to who? Paige? Her carefully coached friends? I pulled out another document, a bank statement showing payments to Sandra. Did you know your wife was paying people to lie about Mom's mental state? He grabbed the paper, scanning it with widening eyes. This could be fake. It's not, and there's more. So much more, Dad. I leaned forward, including proof that Paige has been stealing from my inheritance. The color drained from his face. What? Ask her about the antique box in her closet. Ask her about Grandma's college fund. I stood up. Or, better yet, come to dinner tomorrow and see all the evidence for yourself. Sit down, he said sharply. You can't just drop something like this and walk away. Why not? Isn't that what everyone's been doing to me my whole life? Dropping bombs and walking away? I grabbed my bag. For once, Dad, try looking at the evidence instead of just believing what Paige tells you. My phone buzzed, a text from Alex. Mom's going through your old room, looking for something specific. Seems panicked. I showed Dad the message. Looks like someone's getting nervous. He stared at the phone, then at the documents, then back at me. I need time to process this. You've had 20 years to process the truth. You just chose not to see it. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Dad? Maybe ask Paige about Maria, our old housekeeper. She has some interesting stories to tell. I left him sitting there, staring into his coffee cup. Outside, Natalia was waiting in her car. How'd it go? She asked as I climbed in. Phase 1 complete. He's rattled. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Paige already. Alex says she's searching my old room. Probably looking for anything she might have missed. Any evidence she didn't destroy. Natalia pulled into traffic. Uncle Sylvester's got Maria ready to go for tomorrow. She'll be there right after the main course. Perfect timing for dessert, I said grimly. How's Mom holding up? Nervous but ready. She and Sylvester are finalizing everything now. She glanced at me. You sure you want to go through with this? It's going to get ugly. It's been ugly for 20 years. At least now it'll be honest. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Dad. We need to talk more about this. Soon. He's cracking, Natalia observed. Paige must be losing her mind right now, watching her perfect world unravel. We pulled up to my apartment, but I didn't get out immediately. What if we're wrong? What if this backfires? Then we'll deal with it. Natalia squeezed my hand. But we're not wrong. Alex has the proof. Maria has the testimony. Mom has the letters. And you? She smiled. You have the truth on your side. Truth isn't always enough. No, but combined with bank fraud, witness tampering, and documented theft? She raised an eyebrow. That's more than enough. My phone lit up with another text, this one from Alex. Found something interesting in Mom's shredder. Bringing it tomorrow. Get ready. Looks like the universe is on our side, Natalia said. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be one hell of a family dinner. I stepped out of the car, clutching my bag of evidence. 24 hours until everything changed. 24 hours until the truth finally came to dinner. The dining room felt smaller than I remembered, crowded with tension and unspoken words. Paige had outdone herself with the table setting, her best china, crystal glasses, and fresh flowers arranged just so. A perfect facade, just like everything else about her. Wine, darling? She held the bottle over my glass, her smile tight. No thanks. I want to keep a clear head tonight. Her hand trembled slightly as she moved to fill Dad's glass instead. He hadn't looked directly at anyone since we'd arrived, focusing intently on his water glass, as if it held the secrets of the universe. Alex sat across from me, picking at his salad. Next to him, Natalia chatted cheerfully about nothing important, playing her part perfectly. Uncle Sylvester had texted that he was running late, all according to plan. So, Soleil, Paige set down the wine bottle with a little too much force. I heard you've been meeting with some interesting people lately. Have you been having me followed? I speared a cherry tomato. Don't be dramatic. I have friends who care about this family's well-being. Friends like Sandra? I watched her face carefully. How is she, by the way? Still doing well after those generous deposits you made to her account 20 years ago? The clatter of Dad's fork against his plate echoed through the room. I don't know what you're talking about, Paige said smoothly, but her knuckles were white around her napkin. Really? That's interesting because... The doorbell rang. I'll get it. Alex jumped up before Paige could move. Moments later, Maria walked in, followed by Uncle Sylvester. Our former housekeeper looked exactly as I remembered, short, sturdy, with kind eyes that had seen too much. What is she doing here? Paige stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. Maria, Dad said softly, finally looking up. It's been a long time. Too long, Mr. Phillips. Maria clutched her handbag. I have something to say. This is a private family dinner, Paige snapped. You need to leave. Actually, Sylvester stepped forward, Maria is here as a witness. She has some very interesting things to share about her time working in this house. Witness? Paige laughed, but it sounded hollow. This is ridiculous. Fletcher, do something. Dad didn't move. Let her speak. Maria took a deep breath. I saw you, Mrs. Phillips, every morning for years, going through the mail before anyone else woke up, taking letters addressed to Soleil, burning them in the garden. That's absurd, Paige sputtered. Fletcher, you can't believe... I kept one, Maria continued, opening her bag. Just one, because the envelope was so pretty, with pressed flowers drawn on it. I felt guilty for years about not giving it to Soleil, but I was afraid of losing my job. She pulled out a faded envelope. It's a birthday card from her mother. The room went silent. Dad reached for the envelope with shaking hands. While we're sharing, Alex stood up, pulling papers from his jacket. I found these in the shredder last night. Didn't have time to piece them all together, but the bank letterhead is pretty clear. Something about a trust fund? You went through my private papers? Paige's voice rose an octave. Like you went through my room yesterday? I countered. Looking for evidence you might have missed? I don't have to listen to this. Paige pushed back from the table. Fletcher, we're leaving. Sit down, Paige. Dad's voice was quiet, but firm. I want to hear the rest. The rest? She laughed hysterically. There is no rest. This is obviously a coordinated attack on me, on our family. Our family? I stood up slowly. You mean the family you created by destroying mine? By paying people to lie about my mother? By stealing my inheritance? Everything I did was for this family. No, a new voice said from the doorway. Everything you did was for yourself. Mom stood there, looking elegant and composed, with more documents in her hands. Paige's face went from red to white. You can't be here. The restraining order expired 15 years ago, Sylvester cut in, and was based on false testimony anyway, as Sandra recently admitted in a sworn statement. Sandra would never. She did, I interrupted. Turns out guilt catches up with people eventually, just like karma. Fletcher! Paige turned to my father, her voice desperate. You can't believe these lies. After everything we've built. Built on what, Paige? He finally met her eyes. On manipulation? Theft? Destroying evidence? He held up the birthday card from Mom. On keeping a child from her mother? The perfect facade finally cracked. Paige's face contorted with rage as she grabbed her wine glass and hurled it against the wall, red liquid streaming down the expensive wallpaper like blood. You want the truth? She screamed. Fine. Let's tell the truth. All of it. Alex caught my eye and nodded slightly. Everything was falling into place, exactly as planned. The real show was about to begin. The truth? Paige paced the dining room like a caged animal. The truth is, I saved this family. Your precious Melina was weak, pathetic, always crying about her art and her dreams, while Fletcher worked himself to death. That's not true. Mom stepped fully into the room. I supported Fletcher's career. I raised our daughter while he built his business. You were holding him back. Paige whirled around. I saw his potential. I knew what he could become with the right guidance. You mean with the right manipulation? I said. Tell them about Sandra, Paige. Tell them how you orchestrated the whole thing. She laughed, high and brittle. Sandra was easy. They were all easy. A few $1,000s here, a promised promotion there. People will say anything if you make it worth their while. Dad's face had gone ashen. You paid people to lie about Melina's mental state? I created a narrative that would hold up in court, Paige snapped. One that would let you focus on your career without her emotional baggage dragging you down. And the letters? I pressed. The inheritance? You want to talk about money? She stormed over to the sideboard, yanking open a drawer. Fine. Here are your precious trust fund statements. Yes, I redirected some of it. Someone had to manage your grandmother's ridiculous generosity. Alex picked up one of the statements. Mom, this is fraud. It's family financial management, she turned to Dad. Everything I did, every single thing, was to protect what we built. This house, your career, our reputation, I crafted it all. By destroying evidence? Sylvester stepped forward. By intercepting mail? That's a federal offense, Paige. Oh, please, a few birthday cards, some tearful letters. I was protecting Soleil from her mother's instability. No. Mom's voice cut through the room like steel. You were protecting yourself, Maria, show them. Maria pulled out a small notebook. I kept a diary of everything I saw, dates, times, what Mrs. Phillips did with the mail, who came to the house when Mr. Phillips was away. You spied on me? Paige's voice shook. You were nothing but a servant. I was a witness, Maria said quietly, and I saw how you planned it all, step by step. The fake witnesses, the concerned phone calls to Mr. Phillips about his wife's behavior, the way you isolated Ms. Melina from her friends. It wasn't just Mom, was it? I stepped closer to Paige. Tell them about my college acceptance letters, about the job offers you intercepted. You weren't ready. She grabbed the edge of the sideboard. You're still not ready. Just like your mother, always wanting more than you deserve. Deserve? Dad stood up slowly. What my daughter deserves is her inheritance. What she deserved was a relationship with her mother. What she deserved was the truth. The truth? Paige laughed again, but tears were streaming down her face now. The truth is I made you successful. I made this family what it is, without me. Without you, Alex interrupted. We might have been an actual family instead of this performance. You ungrateful... She lunged for the documents in his hands, but Sylvester stepped between them. I wouldn't, he said calmly. These are copies anyway. The originals are safe with my office, along with Sandra's sworn statement, Maria's diary entries, and evidence of your financial fraud. You can't prove anything. Actually, Alex pulled out his phone. We can. I recorded everything you just said, about paying witnesses, redirecting funds, destroying mail. That's quite a confession, Mom. The fight seemed to drain out of her all at once. She sank into a chair, mascara running down her cheeks. Fletcher, please. Everything I did was for us. Dad walked over to Mom, taking her hand. No, Paige. Everything you did was for yourself. And now you're going to face the consequences. What are you going to do? She looked around wildly. Turn me in? Destroy our family's reputation? The reputation you built on lies? I picked up one of Mom's old letters. I think the truth will be refreshing. You'll regret this, she hissed. All of you. The only regret, Dad said quietly, is that I didn't see through you sooner. He turned to Sylvester. What do we do now? Now, my uncle smiled grimly. We take all of this to the authorities. Mail fraud, witness tampering, financial theft. The police will be very interested. Paige stood up shakily. I want my lawyer. Good idea, Sylvester nodded. You're going to need one. As if on cue, the doorbell rang again. This time, when Alex opened it, 2 police officers stepped into the foyer. Perfect timing, Natalia murmured, pulling out her phone to record what happened next. I watched as Paige's carefully constructed world crumbled around her, piece by perfect piece. The truth, as they say, will set you free. But first, it might just destroy everything you thought you knew. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across everyone's faces as we gave our statements. It was nearly midnight, and the events of the evening felt surreal, like a movie playing out in slow motion. Just a few more questions, Ms. Phillips, Detective Rivera said, shuffling through her notes. You said the financial manipulation began how long ago? At least 20 years, I replied, watching through the window as Paige sat in another room, her lawyer whispering urgently in her ear. But we only discovered the full extent recently. And the witness tampering? That started even earlier. Mom's voice was steady beside me. Sandra's statement confirms it all. The detective nodded, making more notes. The postal inspector will want to speak with you both tomorrow about the mail interference. That's a serious federal offense. Dad paced behind us, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I should have known. All those years I should have seen what was happening. She was very good at what she did, Alex said from his corner. He hadn't stopped watching Paige through the window. She had everyone fooled. Detective Rivera closed her notebook. Based on the evidence you've provided and Mrs. Black's partial confession at the house, we'll be holding her overnight. The fraud division will take over in the morning. What happens then? I asked. Given the extent of the crimes and the documentation you have, she's looking at serious charges. Mail fraud alone carries up to 20 years. A commotion erupted in the other room. Paige had stood up, shoving away her lawyer's restraining hand. I want to talk to them. Her voice carried through the glass. Fletcher, Soleil. Mrs. Black, I strongly advise against, her lawyer started. I don't care, she banged on the window. Fletcher, you can't do this to me. Everything I did was for us. Dad turned away, his shoulders shaking. Mom reached for his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, he took it. You should all go home, Detective Rivera said kindly. We have your contact information. The fraud division will be in touch tomorrow. As we gathered our things, Paige's voice grew more hysterical. Alex, tell them how I protected this family. Alex paused at the door. Goodbye, Mom. His voice cracked on the last word. Outside, the night air felt clean and fresh after the stale police station atmosphere. Natalia was waiting in the parking lot with coffee and sandwiches. Thought you might need these, she said, passing them around. How did it go? About as well as could be expected, Sylvester answered, checking his phone. The fraud division's already reviewing the financial documents. They're particularly interested in the trust fund manipulation. What happens to the house? Alex asked suddenly. All the accounts? They'll be frozen pending investigation, Sylvester explained, but anything that was illegally diverted should eventually be restored to its rightful owners. I turned to Dad. Where will you stay? He's coming home with me, Mom said firmly. We have a lot to talk about. Dad looked up, surprised. Melina, Not tonight, she shook her head. Tonight we all need rest, but soon. I have a spare room, Alex offered. If you'd prefer. Dad shook his head. No, Melina's right. It's time for some honest conversations. A police car pulled out of the station's garage, Paige being transferred to the county jail. We all watched it disappear into the night. It doesn't feel real, I said. Oh, it's real. Natalia pulled out her phone. Already trending on local social media. Prominent businessman's wife arrested for decades of fraud and manipulation. Great, Alex groaned. Just what we need. Actually, Sylvester interjected, public exposure might help prevent her from trying to spin this her way. The truth is already out there. Mom squeezed my hand. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted. It feels like waking up from a very long nightmare. For all of us, Dad said, quietly. He looked at Mom, then at me. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry. So incredibly sorry. It's a start, I said. Alex checked his watch. I should go. Need to pack up some things from the house before they seal it for investigation. I'll help, Natalia offered. One by one, everyone departed until only Mom, Dad, and I remained in the parking lot. The three of us stood there, an awkward triangle of hurt and hope and possibility. Come on, Mom finally said. I'll make tea. We can start small. As we walked to our cars, I heard the faint wail of another siren in the distance. Somewhere in a county jail cell, Paige was facing her first night without control, without power, without her carefully constructed lies. And here we were, taking our first steps toward rebuilding what she had destroyed. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. But at least now we had the truth. All of it. And that was somewhere to start. The autumn breeze rustled through Mom's garden as I helped her plant tulip bulbs. Dad sat on the porch, reading through old letters. He'd made it his mission to read every single one Mom had written, as if making up for lost time. These need to be deeper, Mom demonstrated, digging the hole a few inches further. They'll freeze otherwise. My phone buzzed, a message from Alex. Sentencing today. You coming? I can't, I typed back. Some things are more important. Mom caught me looking at the phone. Alex? Yeah. Paige's sentencing is today. Dad looked up from his letters. Are you sure you don't want to go? I'm exactly where I need to be. I pressed another bulb into the earth. Besides, Sylvester will handle everything. The screen door creaked as Natalia emerged with a tray of lemonade. Anyone thirsty? Also, your publisher called, Soleil. They're excited about the manuscript. I brushed dirt from my hands. They should be. Truth really is stranger than fiction. And more profitable, Natalia grinned. They're already talking about film rights. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I said, but couldn't help smiling. The advance had already helped me move into a new apartment, one without Paige's financial strings attached. Dad set down his letters. I read the draft, last night. And? It's honest, painfully so. He joined us in the garden. I deserved every word. It's not about deserving, I said, accepting a glass of lemonade. It's about truth, all of it, the ugly parts, the healing parts. My phone buzzed again, this time from Sylvester. 15 years, no possibility of parole for 10, financial restitution ordered in full. I showed them the message. 15 years, Dad whispered. Justice, Mom said simply, patting the earth around another bulb. You know what I realized? I sat back on my heels, looking at the freshly planted garden. Paige was right about one thing. I am like my mother. Oh? Mom raised an eyebrow. Yeah, we're both fighters. We both believe in second chances. I glanced at Dad. And we both know how to plant something new in scorched earth. Dad's eyes welled up. I don't deserve— Stop, Mom interrupted. No more talk of deserving. We're here now, doing the work. That's what matters. Natalia's phone chimed. Alex says Paige asked to speak to him after the sentencing. Did he? No, says he's done letting her write his story. She smiled. He's heading over here, by the way, bringing pizza. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. You know what this garden needs? Those wind chimes you used to have, Mom. The ones that played different notes in the breeze. I haven't thought about those in years, she said softly. I have them, Dad said quietly. In my office. I kept them after you left. Couldn't bring myself to throw them away, even when Paige insisted. Well, Mom stood up, brushing off her hands. What are you waiting for? Go get them. As Dad hurried inside, I looked around at what we'd built from the ashes of Paige's destruction. A garden, slowly coming to life. A family, gradually healing. A truth, finally told. The tulips won't bloom until spring, Mom said, reading my thoughts. But that's okay. Some things are worth waiting for. Dad returned with the wind chimes, delicate tubes of metal and glass that caught the sunlight. Together, we hung them from the porch overhang, their gentle music filling the air. Alex's car pulled into the driveway, pizza boxes balanced in one hand, a bottle of wine in the other. Hope everyone likes pepperoni. Also, you'll never believe what Sandra told the judge at the sentencing. As we gathered on the porch, sharing pizza and stories, I realized something profound. Paige had spent decades crafting a perfect facade, but here we were, building something real from the rubble, something messy and honest and true. The wind chimes tinkled in the breeze, their notes mixing with laughter and conversation. Mom and Dad sat close enough for their shoulders to touch, 2 decades of manipulation slowly dissolving between them. Alex told jokes that actually reached his eyes now. Natalia documented everything on her phone, for posterity, she claimed. And me? I watched it all, memorizing every detail for my next chapter, not just in the book, but in life. Because that's the thing about truth. Once it breaks free, it creates its own kind of beauty. Not the polished, perfect kind that Paige had manufactured, but something wild and real and unstoppable, like tulips pushing through winter earth promising spring.